I'd like to call to order the meeting of the West Covina Planning Commission for Tuesday, January 28, 2014 at 7:03 p.m. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for prayer and meditation. Dario, please.
Place your hand on your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Valles? Present. Commissioner Menifee?
Present.
Commissioner Castellanos?
Present.
Commissioner Blackburn? Present. Chairman Holtz?
Present. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. This is our first meeting of the year of 2014. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from December 10th, 2013. Any corrections or additions? None? If so, they stand approved. That brings us to oral communications. This is a time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission relating to non-agendized or consent calendar items. Other matters included on this agenda may be addressed when that item is under consideration. For all oral communications, the chairperson may impose reasonable limitations on public comments to assure an orderly and timely meeting. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the Planning Commission and staff's ability to respond to public comments at this meeting. Thus, your comments may be agendized for a future meeting or referred to staff. The Commission may ask questions for clarification if desired at this time. By policy of the Commission, oral communications at this time in the agenda is limited to a total of 5 minutes. Persons who are not afforded the opportunity to speak at this time may do so under item E later on the agenda. I have some speaker cards at this time. Reed Flacco, do you want to wait till we bring that item up on the agenda before you speak? Okay. Marietta Spallone, speaking on guest houses. Please come up. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, my fault, and as for the rules. Okay. So I believe most of you are aware of the situation with Mr. and Mrs. Chen at 1103 Furcroft that has brought us, our neighbors, and a few other West Covina residents to address you this evening. Due to the mistakes that we feel Planning Department committed by approving the Chen's guest backhouse shed structure without fully inspecting the Furcroft property and knowing the neighborhood that Furcroft Street is on an elevated grade. The Furcroft on an elevated grade, we now have to address this committee on 2 accounts. First, to review the approval of this Furcroft structure and rectify the harm that is brought to the surrounding homeowners, and to amend current policies so that this does not happen to others in our community. West Covina's website describes the Planning Department's duties as focusing on planning and implementing standards that maintain the city's physical environment and quality of life. From our experience, planning departments are meant to always keep the big picture in mind for the well-being of the city and all that live there. When homeowners are focused on themselves and the changes they want to make to their property, it is the planning department's duty to remember the surrounding residents and the impact any proposed structure would have on others. In the circumstance of 1103 Furcroft, this did not happen. The Planning Department representatives I spoke with repeatedly informed me that the Furcroft building was considered a guest house following municipal code guidelines. But when I read the municipal code, section 26-391, permitted uses, it states the property owner shall be required to record a deed restriction limiting the use of the guest house or accessory living quarter as stated in section 2623. Section 2623 is the definition section, and that reads guest house, accessory living quarters with an accessory building for the sole use of persons employed on the premise or more temporary use by guests of the occupants of the premises. Let's all agree with Webster's definition of a guest. It is a visitor, a person entertaining at the house of another. Once a guest permanently resides, they are no longer guests, they are residents. Guests do not permanently move in. The Furcroft homeowners told the planning department that this was being built for a permanent residency, not temporary use as code states. Any structure or add-on going through the plan check process is to be thoroughly reviewed as stated municipal code to preserve the essential residential character of West Covina, City of Beautiful Homes, per their words. How can this be enforced when the city's own admission they do not live in the community they work for? We understand that not being West Covina residents helps the planning department maintain an impartial position. But is that to mean that the decisions they're making on building in West Covina without consulting a map, how a street may rise and fall, twist and turn? Our planning department does not know that West Covina is not flat. They approve without inspecting or requiring proper plans indicating that the guest backhouse shed being on an elevated grade street would invade the privacy of 4 other homeowners. The planning department focused solely on the plot map of 1103 Furcroft because they did not know the city streets, and there was a significant grade height on both sides of Furcroft and in the back. Municipal code under residential development states to instill a sense of community pride in every neighborhood is our utmost importance in the overall maintenance and desirability residential community. Posted in the same section in capital letters, it reads, "Preserve the integrity and visual quality of residential neighborhoods." We on Shasta Street are residents of this neighborhood, and our integrity and visual quality was not preserved or given consideration by the planning department's own confession of being unfamiliar with the city. The Chens admitted to the Shasta neighbors that they did not think how their guest backhouse shed would look from our yards, or that it would look so big and be so big. It is not illegal to be self-indulgent or a bad neighbor, but it is not the planning department position to, in essence, give them their blessing and allow it. It is in the planning department's job to protect all the residents and to have the vision to imagine what something would look like when finished. Municipal Code, Division 10, Single-Family Dwelling Units, Large Expansion and Maximum Unit Size, Section 26,
Speakers
296.
have 5 minutes.
Okay, but Lydia told me there was not a time limit when I called.
I think it's up to the commission.
I read real fast. I got one more page. I was at the bottom of this one. Thank you. We got a lot of people here for us. This code maintains the existing character of neighborhoods by promoting design and development of the property in the manner that is harmonious with the surrounding environs, protect the existing quality of life from potential overbuilding on properties, balance individual needs with community goals, including preserving and enhancing the image of West Covina as the City of Beautiful Homes, maintain the stability of property values, and support the integrity of general plan and zoning. We do appreciate how quickly Ron Garcia, Jeff Anderson, Chris Chung emailed and called, and after a little persuading, came out to see the guest backhouse shed from the Shasta Street view. But the city's answer to their grave oversight should not be that Shasta residents are left to the mercy of the Chen's landscaping taste when Anna Chen told us we all just had to get used to it. The city's responsibility to correct the problem they created by approving the Chen's plans. The answer is not just to give them more power regarding our privacy and quality of life. We should not have to suffer the consequences and live with the invasion of our privacy, unattractive view, and decrease in property value, or the threat of who will be living in this structure, quite possibly illegally, when an 88-year-old passes away and the Chens move. The neighbors on Shasta are looking at the big picture. You know, you guys now cut me down on time, so I don't know if you want me to get my bullet points about what we are asking you to change.
Excuse me, you've exceeded your 5 minutes, so
Right. So I guess we're done.
that's it.
So we just want to know what you guys are going to do for us. and
you.
that we feel that the policies should be amended and codes should be changed, because I have more codes here, and there's a lot of them that were wrong, and all their windows look right into our bedrooms, our bathrooms, our spa, our backyard, our pool. We've lost all our privacy because the city did not know the street was on a no.
Thank you. I have some other speaker cards here, but did not put down what you wanted to speak about. One is from Mandy Fernandez. Which do you want to speak about? Same item?
On the same topic.
Okay.
I happened to be visiting on Shasta the other day, and I was pointed out the property that was the tub shed that had gone up. And my concern is that I'm going to have the same problem eventually, because our property is on Markwood, right off of Cortez, and we're also on an incline. I think what's so upsetting is the privacy issue that has happened, that they've been violated. I know that we've gone to different things at their homes, and the window is going to be overlooking the backyard. I would hope that from now on that surrounding neighbors will be notified, because as you've heard from Marietta, that everything that has gone on in the past 3 weeks has changed their whole lifestyle. Question, should neighbors now add 5 feet to their adjacent block walls? Will the Planning Commission approve that? They're looking at landscaping that's going to be very, very costly. I know that I have block walls, and I don't know who my next neighbors are going to be. Are they going to be able to do what this neighbor did, and then I'm going to lose my privacy? I'm concerned. I'm not that far from her, but again, I'm closer to South Hills, and we are on an incline, so I want you to take into consideration my point of view as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha Flores, same subject. Okay.
Hi. I'm the resident at 1102 South Shasta Street. The Chens are my neighbors in the back, and this is what my house looks like now. Okay? So this is what I have to look at every day now. So I talked to Mr. and Mrs. Chen. They did plant some trees. These are the little trees. I don't know if you could see them, but they're going to grow into a hedge eventually. My concern right now is, assuming they sell their house, what are our guarantees that the new owners are going to keep that landscape? Because someone can just come and say, I don't like that, take it down. I don't care if you don't have, if you have a privacy issue, we don't have to do anything. So that's my number one concern on this. The other thing is, I was going to continue with where Mrs. Spallone left off. Okay, she said the city told us to police Furcroft, to watch them that they do not install kitchen-like items, to catch them in the act, and then city would go out to inspect. We are here because we have lost our privacy to open our bedroom windows, our bathroom window, our spa, our backyard, and the city's answer is for us to become Big Brother over the Chens. When I told the city I would install another camera to film the Chen back house, they answered, that's what neighbors do. The Planning Commission Subcommittee for Design, whose purpose is review of single-family residences, is to ensure quality development, promote orderly development of the city, conserve property values, preserve the architectural character of an area, and to promote harmonious design that is complementary to adjacent properties, as stated in Section 26-418, Division 2, Development Standards. We ask the basis of their approval to be reviewed since we feel item 4, the scale and mass of the building should relate to surrounding structures, the height and bulk of the building should be in scale with buildings on surrounding sites, and should not visually dominate their sites or call undue attention to themselves. This item, among other logic and common sense, was misinterpreted for the residential character of West Covina's City of Beautiful Homes. We ask the commissioners to review the entire planning department policies and procedure for approving the guest backhouse shed at 1103 Furcroft. Was a variance granted on said property? Were any special circumstances, exceptions, privileges, or slight modifications granted. What considerations for Shasta Street residents' quiet enjoyment were discussed? Review the use with common sense and good judgment for an 88-year-old blind and crippled person to live with no heat as possibly unsafe in human conditions. Amendments to policy to be discussed are: the planning department must know the city and streets they work for. If it is not in budget for them to do on-site inspections before any additions, first or second story, and guest houses are approved, they should have the homeowners include with the plan check process neighbors' plots, including the block behind for all elevated grade lots. The West Covina Plan Check Department should have large map of West Covina hanging up and highlight the streets that are on elevated grades for planning to easily reference before approving plans. All properties on elevated lots must give notice to neighbors just as they would to second-story additions for any addition to guest back house being proposed. All properties on elevated lots must show by attached photos the view from any proposed windows. Any add-ons, additions, guest back houses, etc., that could hamper another homeowner's privacy and quiet enjoyment must include a landscaping design plan to be incorporated at the time of construction and adhere to final on-site inspection approval. Trees, vines, etc. need time to grow, so should not be added months and seasons later. In certain circumstances, planning might have to advise that mature trees or vines are needed. The calculation of how large a homeowner may build a separate structure needs to be modified. In this circumstance, the Furcroft property cannot sustain something so large without the appearance that it is bulging off the property. None of us want to see what happened to Arcadia with their McMansions happen in West Covina. Overall, the calculation of total size of any said unit or addition, including height and setbacks from property lines, should be revised. Overall calculation of guest house square footage in comparison to lot size and true intent of use should be modified. These are a few suggestions to close the loopholes in the current policies that need to be reevaluated and amended. We on Shasta Street are still awaiting the city's proposal to us to right the wrong that the city approved to happen to us by not taking into account elevated grades in the city they serve. Shasta Street privacy should not be dictated by the chance pruning skills or the threat of different owners removing the shrubs or cutting them short. The city needs to compensate the Shasta residents for the changes we need to make to our own properties.
You've reached 5 minutes.
So that we can control our own fate. That's it. I'm done. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this did not come under the purview of the Planning Commission. This was something that was acted on within the Planning Department's recommendation. Is that correct?
Mostly. This is allowed by right, so it didn't come before the Planning Commission, and it isn't a review by the Planning Department either. It's by right, like adding a patio cover. As long as you meet the standards, it's allowed to be constructed.
Okay, so we did not review it. It was
No,
something.
the Planning Commission
okay.
did not review it.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if these two cards, it says agenda item number 3. Are you, David, looks like L-Y?
Yes, that's for a
Different item? Okay, and Eva Sue, same thing? Okay, thank you. All right. Did you wish to comment on the speakers?
No, I think the question you asked is probably the best I can answer at this moment in time. I would say also that there has been some discussions over the years about guest houses and standards, and some people have some confusion between guest houses and second units, which are required by state law. We are going to be looking at some of the second unit standards as required by state law. We can also, if so desired, we can bring back the guest house standards at that time because many of them are similar, and you can see then what the comparison between the two lists of standards and the process for approving them.
Thank you.
I will do that when we come back with a second unit ordinance study session, which will probably be sometime in the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I overheard something that's pretty disturbing saying the planning department didn't...
If you have something to say, please come up to the podium.
Sorry, Mark. I'm married to husband Joseph. I live on Shasta right behind the house. You're telling me that the planning department did not review a structure just as if it was an overhang they built?
No, I didn't say that. I
He
said the
said-
planning commission did not review
Did not
this. This
review
is the
it.
planning commission. The planning department has the right to approve it the way it's written in the city right now.
But he said it was just approved just like it was an overhang. That's a structure. That's a second unit. I think that's a failure. I'm sorry.
Want me to clarify? I think
Please do.
you misunderstanding there. What I said was there are certain things that are allowed by right, that a homeowner can do by right without any kind of discretionary approval or review by either the planning department, the planning commission, or the city council. In this case, a guest house fits under that standard, which is like adding a patio cover. So I didn't say overhang, I said a patio cover. It's the same standard of review as a patio cover. And that's not a choice that, well, just leave it there.
Cover is the same as that structure, is what you're saying.
The review process is the same. And what,
We cannot have conversations going back and forth like
So
this.
that's all something's got to change. That's what we're asking. That's got to be changed. Did I say something?
Only if you come up and fill out a card. I'd ask you to fill out a card and give it to the clerk when you're done, please. You can speak now and you can fill it out later.
My name's Thomas Flores, and I just moved to the city of West Covina in Shasta about 5 months ago. And, I hear all this stuff, and I know that in the dais, a lot of people are aloof about what's going on, and the public's the last to know about what's really going on. My thing is that when I look at this, and I was talking this about earlier, it's almost like landlord-tenant law. You have I can't say that word, habitable and quiet enjoyment. And to me, as a taxpayer, property taxpayer for the city of West Covina, I go, shouldn't we be notified if our quiet enjoyment is being infringed on? And the one thing that I see is that here you got these laws and stuff, and the department's going through here. What corrective action, or how could we be notified after this meeting's over? I mean, what's the situation here where, especially the property owners whose privacy is being infringed on? My thing is, is there going to be any corrective action? Is there any way that we as residents of Shasta should be notified, even myself, because I'm scared that about 4 houses down where I live at, they're going to build something right there too. So I don't know, how would we be notified as the residents of Shasta of the progress, or, even if you guys say, nothing we could do, but we should be notified on what type of action is going through. And if we're not satisfied, what's the next step? Do we have to go to city council to actually come up and actually talk about this? Because if the department, because I'm not holding anybody accountable here, but I'm looking at the due diligence of what the city should have done. And also, too, is that making sure that, residents are notified, especially as a constituent now of West Covina. I would like to be notified about exactly what type of actions and how could we actually have access to information so we could actually follow up on this.
Well, right now, the way it is, it's not required that we do that. Okay, right now, the way the rules and regulations are written. Now, if we decide that that's something that we should do in the future, then we need to do a study session and we need to vote on it to see if we want to change the way it's written, and then the city council approves that, and then from that point forward we can do it. But it's not just because I want to do it, you can do it.
I understand. So as the residents in West Covina, do we fill out a petition in order to actually get this thing to be on the agenda of the city council to actually make sure that we prevent this from happening again?
It wouldn't go to the city council yet. First of all, we would do a study session in the planning department to see if we thought that would be something we should do. Then we would vote on that, and if we agreed to do that, then what we would put together, or the planning department would put together, would go before the city council for approval or disapproval to change the way it is today.
And how would we be notified when you do
Notified of what?
Be notified about that study, that study you're talking about?
Well, the study session wouldn't do you much good. It's one, it comes before the city council would be the time to speak on it on behalf that you want to change it, to support that.
Chairman, once
Go ahead.
this gentleman has done his input, I can probably provide some direction on that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because if we as residents we might have to approach city council to actually do a study session. Yeah, okay.
And just so you know, recently, state law, well, in the last couple of years, as far as second homes on property, we've been almost, I don't want to say forced to do it, but it's almost a thing that we have to allow to happen, that allows second homes on properties if they meet all of the, the footage and the setbacks and all that. Where before it was pretty restrictive. Now they're saying we need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on back up.
Okay, so the back house that Mr. and Mrs. Chen built, my understanding is they're not allowed to have a kitchen or any electrical heating for that unit. That's what I was advised, that as long as they didn't have, they were only allowed to have a bathroom and a closet. No countertop, no kitchen.
Okay.
So, I can't police them 24/7, and if they are, I don't know if the 88-year-old mother-in-law is going to live there, or whoever's going to live there. You can't possibly tell me that in the winter, someone's not going to have an electric heater in there, even though they're not allowed. So how do we handle that? And what happens if this 88-year-old person leaves it on? Okay? I'm
Thank you.
just concerned
Thank
about
you.
that.
Thank you.
And
One other question, too.
Oh, wait, we just can't keep running up and down here like this, okay?
All right, well, I'm sorry, but you guys are now saying stuff that we're not even going to be told, that you guys are going to talk about it in secret, that maybe it will change for the next people. But
Nobody
there's still a
said we're going to
problem
talk
for
about it in
these people
secret.
here.
Nobody said we're going to talk about it in secret. What we said is the way the rules and regulations are written today in this city, it doesn't require that we needed to notify anybody. Now, if we do a study session and look at this thing and think that maybe it's a good thing to change the way the rules and regulations are written, we will do that. And if we agree as a panel on the Planning Commission with what the Planning Department presents to us, then that goes before the City Council. If they concur with that, then the changes would be made, okay?
I understand that part of it, but as I opened my statement was this is two-part. That's for the second part, not the first part that
Okay,
people hear.
we're not going to argue. Please sit
You guys
down.
also have to reflect on elevated grade. That's what was missed here, because they don't know the neighborhood.
Would you
and that
please
doesn't
sit down?
help us.
Would you please sit down? Thank you very much.
I would suggest closing oral communications unless there's anything else that anyone would like to, if there's any other speakers, but we've already exceeded the 15 minutes. We normally allot for that, and we have a lot of other business. But, Chairman, I would suggest maybe ask if there's any other oral communications besides...
Later on? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll close oral communications at this time because the other speaker cards I have are about agenda items.
And then what I would say is that, and I think the Chairman has expressed the process very well about changing the code. The code is what the code is. People may disagree with how it's written. It's written the way it is. It's been the way it is probably for at least 20 years. So nobody here was instrumental in adopting or writing the code how it is because it's been in place that long. If the code is changed, and I'll probably bring something back at the next meeting to allow you to modify the code amendment that is in play right now for the second units. And and I know Ms. Ballone has my email, and she can email me a list of people who are interested, and we can make an interested parties list, and we can notify you for any study sessions or public hearings that are part of that. I think that's what you're asking for. And we have no problem doing that. Actually, the Commission would enjoy hearing input from citizenry. That I know is something that they look forward to, getting input. So that being said, that's what our suggestion would be at this point in time.
Thank you. Okay, this closes oral communications, brings us to consent calendar. All matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be acted on by one vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion or action. And I believe there is something that you want to remove
Yeah,
from
let
the
me just
consent
give
calendar.
a quick presentation on that. We have two items on the consent calendar. And they're both extensions of time of things that were approved some time back. First one is a sign for McDonald's on the east side of town, and the second one is a conditional use permit for a beauty school. We would recommend removing item 2, which is the McDonald's sign, just to provide a brief report on that. but we are okay with the other one and would suggest going ahead and acting on the consent calendar for that one and then letting staff provide their report on the second item.
Okay, do we need to vote to remove it or not?
No, you don't need to vote.
Okay.
to remove it.
I have just one question on it. It seems to me on that sign, I read someplace where it was supposed to be 100 foot. Did I see that, or is it 85 foot?
I can cover that when I make the presentation.
Okay, because I just had two numbers there. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Okay. So we want to talk about item 3, extension, conditional use permit for the beauty school at this time at 935 South Glendora Avenue.
It's a part of the consent calendar.
It's part of the consent
Well,
calendar.
it's part of the consent calendar, but I've got 2 speaker cards on it, too. Can they speak on that at the consent calendar?
No, Mr. Lee wants to speak on item 4. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
3. They've got 3 on here.
So we're going to skip on the speak because I know we're behind. I think
Oh, it is number 3 that you were, okay.
Can
So
they
they're
speak on it?
saying they're declining to speak on it.
Okay, so neither person? Okay, all right. Motion and second to approve items listed on the consent calendar.
I'd move approval of item 3 being on the consent calendar.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, did you get a second? Oh, I'm
Betty
sorry.
did. Okay, brings us to public hearings.
No, let's go back to the item number 2 for the McDonald's sign. Let me provide.
Oh, okay, you
report
want
on
to go
that.
back to that? Okay.
Yeah. At the November 22nd, 2011 meeting, the Planning Commission approved variance number 1111 to allow the installation of an 85-foot tall freestanding sign. Chairman Holtz, what I don't recall if they were proposing a 95 or 100-foot, but their proposal was for a taller sign. The Planning Commission approved a slightly smaller sign at 85 feet. That's valid for a 1-year period, and then they're allowed to ask for 3 one-year extensions. The 1-year period expired. They asked last year and got an extension for the first 1-year extension. Now they're asking for the second 1-year extension. They submitted their request for extension on November 20th, 2 days before it would have expired, so they're okay in that. They're requesting extension due to construction scheduling conflicts, so they're not ready to move forward exactly yet. The reason we just bring this up is because when it was approved by the Planning Commission in 2011, the code allowed for McDonald's to have a 6-foot tall, 40-square-foot sign. But last year, the Planning Commission and City Council reviewed a code amendment that changed the standards for signs along the freeway and sort of set a new standard for what might be expected. And the new code would allow McDonald's specifically, and any other tenant along the freeway there, to have a single tenant, to have a 35-foot tall sign with 200 square feet, and they could ask for a conditional use permit to have a 61-foot tall sign, 350 square feet. So we also did provide you attachment 2, which is a chart of other signs along the freeway, just to show how tall that sign would be, the second tallest in town, just a little bit shorter than the auto row sign. So we're just bringing that back to see if the Planning Commission is still comfortable with extending that, or if they have any other questions or concerns about that. That concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions or concerns about that? Anybody? Betty?
In regards to the extension, do you think that they would finalize it within a year? Because we can only extend it 3 times, am I correct?
That is correct.
So then if we extend it this time and they're unfinished with it, then they have to submit another?
Yes.
Okay.
They would have to submit another one before the November of this year.
Okay.
And then that would be their final one. So they would expire in 2015, if I'm doing my math correctly.
All right.
Anyone else?
I'd move approval of the extension of time for McDonald's.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, now it brings us to public hearing. Precise plan number 13-02, categorical exemption. Applicant Teresa K. Plante, 1030 South Glendora Avenue, request to demolish an existing 955-square-foot single-family residence and construct an 1,850-square-foot commercial building on a 7,497-square-foot parcel located at the above-mentioned address. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, Amy Davis will be presenting that report.
Good evening, Chairman Holtz. Good evening, Commissioners. The proposal consists of the demolition of an existing 955 square foot single-family residence and construction of an 1,850 square foot commercial building. The applicant has indicated that the proposed building will be used as a beauty salon. The site is located on South Glendora Avenue between Vine Avenue and West Cove Place near the Hong Kong Plaza Shopping Center. The site is zoned office professional. All of the properties on the east side of South Glendora Avenue between Vine Avenue and West Cove Place have commercial zone designations, with the exception of the neighboring property to the south of the subject site, which is zoned single-family residential. All of the properties on the east side of South Glendora Avenue, including the subject site, have a general plan land use designation of service and neighborhood commercial. A precise plan is required for the construction of the new building and other modifications to the site. Setbacks for the proposed building are in compliance with standards set forth in the municipal code. Modifications to the site include a 5-foot street dedication along South Glendora Avenue, a 6-foot wide landscape buffer along the south perimeter of the site, approximately 1,979 square feet of new landscaping, a trash enclosure behind the new building, and a 6-foot tall block wall. The applicant is providing 7 on-site parking spaces based on the code requirement of 1 space for every 250 square feet of gross floor area for retail uses, less 128 square feet for the proposed restrooms as allowed by the code. 5 90-degree angle spaces are provided along the north side of the site, while 2 parallel spaces are provided near the south side of the site. On-site parking is accessible via an existing alley. The proposed building features a contemporary style of architecture. The main entrance is comprised of glass double doors with overhead windows that are centered along the front elevation. The front elevation also includes 2 arch elements on either side of the doors, each with 4 sets of windows. The rear elevation is designed to resemble the front elevation, with a rear entrance that consists of a single glass door with an overhead window and 3 arch elements, each with 2 sets of windows. The rear entrance features an overhead trellis element with 2 support posts. The height of the proposed building is 17 feet and includes a decorative cornice molding along the top of the parapet. Exterior materials include a cultured stone wainscot and a variety of neutral colored stucco. Staff has included a number of conditions of approval in the resolution that pertain to the new building and the modifications to the site, including the arch elements and areas surrounding the front and rear entry shall be recessed to provide better articulation along the front and rear elevations. The incorporation of an overhead trellis element above the front entrance that's comparable to the one proposed along the rear elevation. The review and approval of a landscape plan. The removal of the existing sign frame that's located in the front yard of the property. The removal of the existing fence and construction of a 6-foot tall block wall along the rear property line to match the block wall that's proposed along the side property lines. And a 3.5-foot separation that's proposed between parking space number 5 and the rear property line shall be landscaped. Additionally, a landscape pocket shall be installed between parking spaces number 2 and 3. The 3.5-foot separation and the landscape pocket, along with the landscape area that's already proposed behind the building, will allow for the installation and growth of clinging vines on the proposed block wall, which will be a deterrent to graffiti. The proposal is considered to be categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act, since the proposed building is less than 10,000 square feet. In closing, the existing single-family residence is a non-conforming use. The applicant's proposal to demolish the existing house and replace it with a new commercial building will bring the site into conformance with the zone and land use designations. Additionally, the new commercial building will allow for an additional service available to residents who live in the vicinity of the site. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving precise plan number 13-02 for the demolition of the existing house and construction of the new commercial building. This concludes the staff report. I would be happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicant is here as well this evening. Thank you.
Any questions of staff? None? Okay. Open it up to public testimony. I'm going to speak in favor of the project. Mr. Johnson.
One out. You know, I went by the spot over there. You know, I think it's going to look beautiful over there. You know, it's going to clean it up, and you know, it will do a lot for the area. Then, and you know, a beauty salon is something that the city of West Covina should embrace. This is the type of business that we do want in our city. So I hope the Planning Commission will agree this tonight and go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the project? Anyone else want to speak in opposed to it? None? Okay. We'll close public testimony and open it up to commission discussion. Anybody want to start on this?
I'm always excited to see new businesses come into West Covina, and just as Mr. Johnson said, it's an area that I think would be very accommodating to the type of business that's proposed there, and I would definitely be in favor of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and the drawings look great, so, and bringing the land to its appropriate use, that'll be nice too, kind of convenient, so I don't see anything bad about this. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yes, you know, I have some questions on this. I like the idea of the beauty salon. However, it doesn't explain too much on the beauty salon. Now, you know, usually, I don't know, did they explain whether there's going to be a full beauty salon with a manicure and pedicure and nothing like that? And how many stations they're going to have, and if they're going to be renting the stations? Did anyone explain that?
That's the use. This is not. We didn't. We don't have it. We don't have a discussion with them on how exactly the use is going to operate. And the reason behind that is because the issue before the precise plan before you is not a use issue. It's a structural issue. But I would also tell you that, and we have the applicants here. They didn't speak, but if they might have some input into it. When they first came in, they weren't talking about a beauty salon, so they've looked at a couple of different uses. So the building may last longer than the use.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's my response to it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have anything to say about how they use the inside as long as they meet codes and
that's correct, as long as it's an allowed use
and license and all that.
And and there's things that if it's a beauty salon, there's things they're going to have to do. You know, they're going to have to meet certain requirements, but that won't. From our standpoint, it won't come through. That won't be a planning issue. That'll be more of a business license and a health department and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to know whether there was going to be a full beauty salon with the pedicures and the manicures in there.
Well, you could ask the applicants if they know that. Because I don't know off the top of my head.
Does the applicant want to speak on that issue?
And members of the Planning Commission, my name is Edgar Rojas. Unfortunately, the property owner was not able to attend the meeting tonight, but on the conversation I had with her before, this is going to be exclusively for her business. It's not going to be leased out or rented out to anybody, and it's just beauty salon for, I think it's a skin care center, pretty much.
Thank you. No, it sounds to me like it's going to look nice. It's going to add to the value, I think, of that area, so I'm in favor of it. Any further discussion by the commission? Okay. Can we have staff read the resolution numbers, please?
Yes, it's one number here for the precise plan. It's 14-5549.
Okay. Do we have a motion for Resolution 14-5549?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Do we have two resolution numbers, did you say?
Just
or
one.
the one? Okay, thank you. Okay. Good luck. Okay, gets us to agenda item number 5, administrative use permit number 13-55, categorical exemption. Applicant is Anthony, I guess, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Pie, okay. For East West Supermarket, 3650 South Nogales Street, Quail Ridge Shopping Center. Request for the retail sale of alcoholic beverages with a new grocery store. The grocery store is located within an area of undue concentration as defined by the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. A neighboring resident submitted a request for a hearing. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, Ron Garcia will be presenting that report.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. The applicant, again, is requesting the approval of an administrative use permit to allow the off-sale service of beer and wine and distilled spirits type 21 in conjunction with the operation of a grocery store, which is located in the northeast corner of the Quail Ridge Shopping Center. Legal notices were mailed. During the public review period, staff received one request for a public hearing. Therefore, a public hearing was scheduled before you. An administrative use permit is required for businesses that sell alcohol for off-site consumption located in an area of undue concentration. When the existing number of licenses within an area exceeds the standards established by ABC, the city has the authority to make a determination per the ABC regulations. This authority relates to, again, new locations where there is a higher than average number of licenses or a higher than average crime rate. First, the undue concentration of liquor licenses. The census tract, which exceeds the ratio of licenses to population in this county, is considered an area of undue concentration. The property is located in a census tract, which is, again, in an area of undue concentration of off-sale alcoholic beverage licenses. And that 2 liquor licenses are permitted within that census tract where there are 4 licenses. In the staff report, staffs outlined those locations, one being CVS Pharmacy, which is in the Quail Ridge Shopping Center, and then across the way there at the other shopping center directly south of it is Bestway Supermarket, Canyon Liquor, and 7-Eleven. Now, ABC standards for undue concentration of crime, which it exceeds the average number of reported crimes in the city by 20%, is considered an area of undue concentration of crime. The West Covina Police Department reviewed the request and has provided a memo stating that the current crime figures it falls within reporting district 133 and shows a total of 50 crimes reported where the average number of crimes for the city is 22. This is a high crime area as defined by the state as the number of crimes are more than 20%. It should be noted that it is common for a commercial reporting district in the city to be defined as a high crime area due to the way a high crime area is defined by the state. The operation of the grocery store will specialize in high-quality Asian and American products similar in nature to those offered by HK2 Market, which is located at Hong Kong Plaza, and 99 Ranch Markets located throughout Southern California. The hours of operation of the store are between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., and it's Monday through Sunday. Staff supports the request because it is anticipated that the operation of the business will not increase or contribute to the crime rate in the reporting district. The police department has reviewed the proposal and has indicated that it has no issues with the applicant's request. The owner of East West Supermarket has agreed to the conditions of approval. The city's general plan encourages diversity of uses within the zone as long as it provides adequate physical and safety measures to prevent negative impacts on adjacent properties. This diversity of uses should be allowed as long as they do not adversely impact existing or planned residential uses or conflict with the general plan goals and objectives. The proposed use is a grocery store and the off-sale service beer and wine is incidental to the sale of other goods and services within the subject store and will not be a detriment to the city. In closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution approving the administrative use permit. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is present for any further questions. Thank you.
Have any questions of staff?
I have a question.
Question?
Ron, did I misunderstand you? You said that the area allows 2 licenses, liquor licenses for that specific area. Is that, did I understand that right?
That is correct, and that is confirmed by the Alcoholic Beverage Control, in that they provide whether the location and the census tract is within an area of undue concentration. So what they'll do is they'll provide us with the number allowed and then the number that's existing.
And we now have 4?
Currently, there are 4 ABC off-sale licenses.
If they only allow 2, how do we have 4?
It's a threshold, not an allowance. And let me, I'll editorialize a little bit here to understand where I think this came from. And I did a little bit of research because we review these a lot. These are administrative use permits, so they come to us. The only reason it came to the Planning Commission is because there was appeal. So it isn't there's an issue with the number or anything. That would be reviewed by us, and we review these and approve them quite frequently without ever Planning Commission involvement. But it seems what happened is most of you are old enough to remember, maybe Dario's not, most of you remember the early 90s when we had the rebellion in South Central Los Angeles, and probably most of you can remember footages of intersections where there was like a liquor store in every corner. So it seems like what happened after that point is there was a lot of criticism of perhaps the state, perhaps the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, perhaps somebody else, about allowing so many in a certain district. So in the early 90s then, the ABC, the state came in and said, you know what, we should make cities review these things more thoroughly. So let's set a standard, and I apologize, I don't know the statistic, how it's based on a mathematical equation, what the undue concentration is, a certain population or a certain number per square feet, something. And so they set that, and they say, cities, if it's over that, you guys need to make a statement that you're okay with it, so that it takes the burden off of us.
That's the ABC?
That's ABC. So yeah, they're based, and nobody's going to say this. I'm editorializing. I want to make sure everybody knows that. But as I read this, that's how we got to where we're at. So that's why we have these terminology, high crime, which seems like, oh man, we can't approve anymore. There's high crime. But every single commercial district that we've ever reviewed is a high crime area per their standards. They get to define what a high crime area is, not the city. So it's basically it's a threshold of saying, you know, we're above this certain average. We think you guys should review this more thoroughly. Now, to add to the confusion, the city, sometime in the last 10, 15 years, they determined that the only time an off-sale alcohol beverage license that requires an AUP is when it's undue concentration. So if it was an undue concentration, back to our earlier discussion, it's allowed by right. It doesn't come to staff, it doesn't come to you for review, it's allowed by right. So the only reason this is here is because of this undue concentration standard that they set, and then this undue concentration also sets this, what's the term I'm looking for, public convenience and necessity requirement that ABC says we're not going to approve this unless the city says that they're okay with this number of, this high crime and this number of alcohol sales within that census tract. Well, that's a long explanation, but I'm not sure I could have done it any other way. And part of that's editorializing in my understanding of how the world operates.
And I'm just curious, if the ABC designates what areas are high crime, what do they use to compare? Do they use comparable cities? Do they? They don't. Do they just pick out West Covina and they say it's not? It's a statewide.
It's statewide. These are statewide standards. Every city has to go by these statewide standards. And to try to be more clear, Alcohol Beverage Control doesn't review. They require the city to review and make that statement. They're not reviewing it.
Okay.
They're just going to say, oh, the city made the statement, it must be okay. and there probably are cities that say, oh, that's too many, we're going to deny it for that reason. Now, in this city, we can deny it because we can deny an administrative use permit. You know, we don't have to approve an administrative use permit. That's a discretionary action. The planning commission has the right, the planning department has the right to deny it if there's some issue with it. But historically, we haven't had an issue with this type of use. When you have a supermarket or a large store that has a minor incidental use of selling alcohol, the city has looked at it as a normal function of a large retail market.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menifee?
Yes. If I understand the documentation that we were provided, this is a grocery store, east-west grocery store.
That's correct.
We're focusing our conversation, properly so perhaps, on liquor sales, off-site liquor sales. We haven't talked about tobacco sales. We know it's proximus to Nogales High School, which is just across the street. That always bothers me, but that's not an issue here. It's really an all, I presume, grocery store. I'd be interested in asking, if we have an opportunity, the applicant about square footage dedicated to this as opposed to square footage for non-alcoholic
Yes.
items.
I think that's in the report. It's 1% of the total retail space, 400 square feet.
I missed that.
Okay.
And the applicant is here. They might be able to answer that clearly. And yes, you are correct. We are focused on the alcohol because the code says that's what should be reviewed with administrative use permit.
I see.
But as again, the grocery store is an allowed use. It doesn't require review. It's allowed by right. Planning department can't deny it. Planning commission can't deny it. And as you brought up, there are other types of merchandise that there may be some concerns about, but the code so far hasn't changed to require any kind of review of those type of merchandise.
Anyone else?
Sure.
Oh. Anyone else for staff? Okay. Okay. We'll open it up to public testimony. I have one card from Reed Flacco. Would you like to come up, please?
My name is Reed Flacco. I'm actually a manager for East West Supermarket, so I wanted to be here to answer any questions if they did come up. We do agree and support all conditions that the city has recommended and is going to put in place.
Thank you. Herb Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. This is my part of town, South Side. And when the Quail Ridge Center was relaunched and reborn back in 2000 and 2001, we had high hopes for that center. And over the years, it's been kind of a rough haul. A lot of that has to do with the economy and, other conditions that affected it. But that particular location for a supermarket has gone through, it was Food Mart International, and then it became something else, and now it's going to be reborn with the East-West market. And I think that, as was stated, the alcohol beverage sales portion of the store is very small compared to the overall size of the operation. And I think we as a city and you as a commission need to do what you can do to help this business succeed and compete successfully. Now, granted, across the street, where Best Way is, that is not in West Covina. I realize it's part of the same census tract, but that's in a county area. And, this is a store that's within our jurisdiction and within our boundary. So, again, we need to help these businesses succeed, and we need to do what we can to ensure that this center, which has been rough, has a chance to continue to grow and succeed. And this is kind of a niche market, I guess. And I mean, they're going to have the high quality Asian products for sale and American products. You have CVS on the corner, which has their clientele and their customers. I think we need to do whatever we can to help this business who's coming into West Covina, help them succeed. And I would urge you to approve what's in front of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone want to speak in opposition? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and open up the commission discussion. Who'd like to go first?
Well, you know, I'm not against the market. I know we need the market. But I'm against the liquor because you already have 4 places there that sell the liquor. And it is so close to the schools. And the report also states about the crime. And that is my concern. I know we need a market. I know we have to revive that area. But I just wanted to state I am against the fact of the liquor.
Commissioner Castellano?
Yeah, Jeff, I was 9 years old, but I think it was April 24th, 1992. Anyway, that being said, I hear Betty's concern, but I think that if somebody wants to use alcohol as a vehicle to commit a crime, whether we have this store here or not, will not impact their access or ability to do that. I think denying them the ability to sell liquor will negatively impact them. Potential patrons of the store, I think, will be frustrated to have to make multiple stops if that happens to be, if liquor happens to be one of the items on their shopping list. So, I think even with, as the reference was made about the census tract having 50 crimes versus 22, I really don't think this will encourage or discourage anybody from committing a crime. So I think the only thing this will accomplish is just give people more choice. But really, the key point, as it has been mentioned, is that this is a grocery store, and that's going to offer variety and hopefully have a lot of happy customers. So that's my take on it.
Thank you.
I have heard, excuse me, some very nice things about, about the east-west supermarkets. I do understand it's supposed to be a high quality, I'm not sure how many, the square footage, not to ask applicant, but I think there are several of the supermarkets around.
This will be our first in the United States, but we have 72 other markets, and this will be our launch into the United States. In addition, we've really done our best to limit the amount of square footage we're using for alcohol sales, and of that, almost 50, down to 400 square feet, less than 1% of the property, which is fairly uncommon, and of that, about 50% of that is actually locked.
Thank you. I was mistaken. I thought this was going to be like the second or third in the area in California. Anyway, I'm like my fellow commissioners, I'm always excited to see new businesses come into the area. I'm candidly not thrilled with a lot of the liquor sales. I can agree with my fellow Commissioner Betty, but on the other hand, too, I understand if alcohol is on your list, shopping list, if you don't buy it at the grocery store, you're going to drop by another grocery store or liquor store. I have no issues with that. And as I said earlier, I certainly support new businesses coming into West Covina, and I would certainly support it.
Thank you. Commissioner Menifee?
I agree with my colleagues. I think that we would welcome you to our community. I think that we're always looking for new and better ways to do things. I recognize the marketing difficulty of determining what you will and what you won't have there for your clients. and I hope you do very well. Thank you.
I have a little different view on it myself. It's mine. They're talking about Part 1 crimes in that area. Part 1 are the most heinous crimes. They're not, robbery, armed robbery, those kinds of. Part 1 crimes are very high-end crimes. And it is the state number of crimes more than 20%, and I know for a fact, through personal experience, that is a high crime rate in that area. The other thing is that Mr. Redholz mentioned that we need to do everything we can possible to help people succeed. But then on the other hand, you think they recommend 2, there's 4 there already, this would be 5. And if people buy the liquor in this supermarket, they're going to take away the business from the other liquor stores. So it's going to affect the other ones that are there trying to survive. I'm certainly not against the supermarket. I've heard very good things about it. But I don't think it's necessary, especially with the high school. That concerns me with the high school right across the street, and having 5 locations within a very small area that there'll be liquor. And my feeling on it, I don't really think that the supermarket needs to have the liquor, so I'm against the approving it for the liquor at this point in time. Any further comments?
That location has had actually more, it's had liquor sales for 24 years in that same exact building prior to us coming in and applying for this. And actually, when we looked at this site, we actually did what we could to actually reduce the amount of liquor that was sold out of that property. And so we actually have scaled it back tremendously compared to what was there prior. And again, it is vital to our success in attracting and keeping clients because there is so much competition. And we will follow, again, all the conditions and everything that's set out, and we take it extremely seriously.
Thank you. Okay, you want to close? Anybody else want to comment on it? Did you have your hand up, Mr. Redholz? Jeff?
Oh, I was ready for it. I think I've already gave my input from the staff's point of view. We are recommending approval. But I was going to provide the number, the resolution number. The resolution number is 15550.
15550. 15550?
15-5550. A lot of fives. I'm sorry, it's 14, isn't it? Yes. I skipped a year. Sorry.
Give it to me one more time. 145550?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. 4-1 passes. Good luck. Okay, brings us to item number 6. Code Amendment number 13-05, General Exemption, applicant City of West Covina, location citywide. Excuse me. Request the proposed code amendment consists of certain amendments to the zoning section of the West Covina Municipal Code as it pertains to donation drop boxes. May we hear the staff report, please?
I'll be presenting this report. I move not to confuse you, but to get you closer to the laptop so I can see the PowerPoint better. This is a code amendment for donation drop boxes. On July 9th, 2013, the Planning Commission initiated a code amendment to study donation drop box standards. Donation drop boxes are metal containers. And I can't get the thing to forward. Okay, there we go. Donation drop boxes are metal containers that are 5 to 6 feet in height and 3 to 6 feet in width and depth. They are placed in parking lots and allow for donation of items such as clothing, shoes, and toys. The donated items are collected and sold or given away, and some are placed by nonprofits and other placed by for-profit businesses. Unattended drop boxes are generally placed in parking lots of commercial businesses and picked up and a new drop box left or cleaned periodically by the provider. Usually have a remote mouse, so didn't put that in this time. Attended donation drop boxes are also placed in commercial lots, and an attendant is on site during hours of operation to ensure that correct items are dropped off and to maintain the site. The issues with donation drop boxes include graffiti, debris around the boxes, that cause blight. Boxes appear overnight without approvals from the city. They require a lot of code enforcement resources to address them. I believe that we found 15 in the city when we started looking into the issue last year. They're currently classified as small collection facilities, which requires an administrative use permit, but that classification is really meant for recycling facilities, and it's sort of an interpretation to have them in that. Based on the Planning Commission direction provided at the study session held on November 12, 2013, staff has drafted a code amendment. This amendment would require approval of an administrative use permit for attended donation drop boxes. Unattended would not be allowed. It would require a notification of a 300-foot for any new proposals. And in passing, it would also modify the logic in the code for how administrative use permit notification is defined. And that's more of a cleanup thing that staff noted, but if you want me to go into that further, I can. It would then create a definition for donation drop boxes, and it would require development standards that include the following: that they're only allowed in non-residential uses, that they're a minimum of at least 50 feet away from the street, that materials must be stored inside of the box, that they're a minimum of 250 feet away from residential uses, and that the operation can only occur between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. at night. In addition, there are some small cleanup issues that we're also suggesting for the small collection standards. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending approval of Code Amendment number 1305 to the City Council, and that concludes my presentation.
Any questions of staff at this time?
Jeff, the picking of the times, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., I presume has something to do with commercial use of retail outlets. But I'm wondering if one wanted to have a different time, would they then be pursuant to the acceptance or approval of this amendment, would they then have to ask for a use permit, or how would they deal with that?
I see.
If they wanted to have it at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 10?
This is the code, so they would need a variance from the code.
A variance, okay.
Yeah. Now, an option, if you think that, well, there's a couple options there. One option is we could, I don't know that I would suggest extending it later at night, but if you wanted it early in the morning, we could just change the time. There's nothing magical about that time. My memory is I looked at the current small collection facilities time, and that one is 8 a.m., but then I also communicated, I believe, with one of the users, and they felt like that would be okay. But right now, they're operating in that situation. But we could easily change it to 8 if you think that's appropriate. I don't have a problem with that myself.
If it were to say 8 or 9 to 9, they wouldn't have to do it. They could do it from 10 to 9, then, couldn't they? They could do it for fewer hours, but they just couldn't do it for more.
That is correct.
Right? Okay.
And another option, too, just while we're discussing that, would be to say these are the hours, and if you want different hours, you have to be approved by either the planning director or approved by the planning commission. So that would up it, keeping in mind that administrative use permit generally doesn't go to the planning commission, so you could set the bar a little bit higher and say, if you want additional hours, we don't need a variance, because we've had that discussion before. We're not necessarily encouraging variances. I would say let's discourage variances, let's figure out ways to do things without a variance. But that would require that to come to the Planning Commission for their review if they wanted to have hours outside of whatever you decided on tonight.
And I think for things like that, we typically prefer the administrative use permit so that your department can move and move fast.
That is correct.
On resolving an issue.
That's correct, yeah.
Question, Jeff. Item 10 on page 9, it says attended facility shall operate only during the hours of 8 and 7 on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 6 a.m. So we're saying if it's an attended facility, they must have somebody there 7 days a week.
Now, what you're reading, Chairman Holtz, is the requirements for small collection facilities, which is on page 9 of the Code Amendment resolution.
Yeah.
So you would want to go to page 11, which is the highlighted or the bold underlined section is what would be the standards for the donation drop boxes. And the time there is number 10.
Yeah, but I'm saying is it 7 days a week they need to be attended? I just want to make clear of that. Because this just says donation shall operate only during the hours between 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. But
that would be the hours when they could only be open. So the way it works here is that to be open for allowing drop off, they need to have somebody there. So they don't allow drop off unless somebody's there. That's what I mean by attending.
Okay, but are they required with permit or whatever to have somebody there 7 days a week?
No.
Well, then if they're not there, let's say they're just there Monday through Friday, what's to stop people from just dumping stuff there on the weekend, let's say?
Well, that could happen. It could happen in a parking lot, and it happens in dumpsters all the time over the city. So you're right, but I don't think there's anything we could do to stop that.
But can't we make it so that if it's an attended facility, somebody has to be there 7 days a week?
We probably could. I'm not sure how we would enforce that, and I'm not sure what... And unfortunately, you remember the study session, we had some individuals here, and I did notify them, but they didn't, I guess they had other issues to deal with tonight. I think it'd be good to discuss that, to get their input on that kind of change.
Because the mindset, at least that I have, most people, be working Monday through Friday would be the attendant.
Yes.
And to me, most people, when they're cleaning stuff out to donate, and I'll usually do it on a weekend when most people are off. So that's where they dump it, and that's where it's stored. So I think a solution might be, if they want to have an attended facility, they need to have somebody there 7 days a week. I don't know if the rest of the commission agrees with that. It's just a thought.
And just to throw another thought in there, number 11 does say that it's supposed to be, the hours of operation are supposed to be marked, indicated on the site, so on the box. So I don't know if that helps.
It says no material shall be left outside, but people don't follow those directions. I mean, come on, if they want to dump something, they're going to dump it.
That's part of the problem, yes, you're right.
And that becomes unsightly again. I mean, this goes very far in cleaning up things.
Yes.
But again, when you dump it, when somebody's there, they're going to dump it. They're not going to come back on Monday. I can't see anybody come back on Monday. So if they want to have this thing where they're making a profit on it, whatever they're doing, reselling or whatever they're doing, which is fine, but then they ought to have somebody there 7 days a week. Because like when you do recycling for cans and bottles and all that stuff, they're there 7 days a week. There's somebody there manning that 7 days a week. Commissioner Blackburn.
How many of the donation drop boxes or drop areas do we have in the city right now?
As far as I know, the one that I showed the picture of is the only one that's still operating, because the rest of them were unattended, and we asked them to remove them. So as far as I know, it's just that one.
I think we had 15 or some...
Yeah, I think it was 15.
I think it was 15. Were they busy? I'm just wondering if 15 drop boxes, the drop areas, were getting donations. I wonder how busy the one that is still open, I wonder how they're doing. If it's, and that would be one of my concerns that Commissioner Holtz said. Can they handle the 15? If we had 15 and we're down to one, is that one just extremely busy, or do the people starting to...
Well, I think what will happen is if you got 15 going down to one, the other 14 are going to dump stuff into that one, so they'll be extremely busy.
Well,
they got to dump it somewhere, and if there's only one, that's where they're all going to go that went to some of the other ones.
Let me follow up with that with a couple comments. First of all, 15 have been gone for, my rough guess right now is probably 4, 5, 6 months. So it's not like they just disappeared in the last couple of weeks. They've been gone for half a year now.
Right.
We started addressing them, I want to say, late spring, early summer last year. And I believe most of them were removed by the end of the summer. So they've been gone for a while. The other thing about those ones is that they were unattended and they were not approved by the city. The city really had no idea. And as I understand it, what they do is they drop the box off with a truck. They come in sometime later and pick the box up. So it may be full, but the reason it may be full is because it hasn't been picked up for a month and a half.
Plus they don't clean up the trash that was
They don't
around.
clean it up afterwards, so there may be, and what we also, we believe happened is people would also go there and try to get stuff out of it. So if they got stuff out, they might not put it back. So it might not have been full, but there might have been stuff piled up all around it. So it was really hard for us to judge how full or how busy those were. The other thing to, let's see if I can go backwards. Nope. The other thing to keep in mind here is that these are examples of the unattended ones, and this is a weird. Yeah, I don't know what in the world. This is the weirdest system. We have a remote mouse. Again, I forgot to put it up. But you can see that one's a bigger. This is more like a truck box.
Almost looks like a walk-in.
It is, yeah. So it's a much bigger one, and they do it the same way. Their truck comes and picks it up, but it's much bigger, so more would fit there. The other thing is, as I discussed, those smaller ones, I don't even know how often they were attended, but my guess is it was a lot less than you might think. Maybe once a month, maybe once every other month, and so. When it got messy, who's cleaning it up? Well, it may be a month before somebody comes by and checks it. But this one, this kind, is being cleaned up if there's nobody there on Sunday, Monday they come in and they clean it up. So there might be an issue for a day, but Monday it's cleaned up. So that's the difference in sort of how we got on this track of suggesting the attended ones would be.
Well, it'd be 2 days, Saturday, Sunday, not just one day.
Yeah, my gut feeling is they might be open on Saturdays, but that's a gut. I didn't quiz them on their hours of operation. Sorry, I didn't.
Commissioner Menifee?
May I remind us that we're talking about attended donation drop boxes. There are other places people can take things, such as the Salvation Army.
Goodwill. Yes.
Goodwill, yeah. And so there are places around that you can do that, so they don't become the sole place necessarily, nor may they be the only attended donation drop box in the future. We just don't know that. I think that, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is you address the issue of them keeping the place clean and orderly. And so if they're open 5 or 6 days a week and not on Sunday, for instance, and it becomes messy on Sunday, they need to address that. And so I kind of, in my mind, would see that as part of their responsibility to adjust their hours if they need to. But I hate to see us, I think, demand that they be there 7 days a week. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Anyone else? If my recommendation is 7 days a week, but certainly on Sundays or even Saturdays, I wouldn't expect them to stay there till 9 o'clock at night. But even if they went by for a half a day on Sunday, they could pick up whatever was dumped there to keep it clean. And like I say, they're making a profit on this stuff. They're reselling it or whatever they're doing. They're not doing it because they're just good guys on it. And that's, again, I'm being redundant, but that's when most people take stuff to dump, is on the weekends when they're cleaning out garages or whatever. And that's when it's going to be, and that's when most people are around in the city. So now you see this stuff piled up there again, and especially if it's down to one. And like Commissioner Menifee said, I know at our church once a month they have a truck, a Goodwill truck that comes and you can drop stuff off. But most people, don't do that. They see a box, they'll dump it. They'll dump mattresses, they'll dump whatever, even though they're not supposed to. That's what they do. And the homeless people go, and I've seen them already. Homeless people go tearing through that stuff. But this one looks like it's probably secured. They can't get in it, I would hope. But if stuff is dumped outside, it's going to sit there. So I just would like to see that it's manned 7 days a week with lesser hours on Saturday and Sunday. That's my recommendation.
Well, I think
Any
that
further
you-
questions?
Yeah, there's no questions. You still have a public hearing to open.
Pardon?
There's still a public hearing to open.
That's right.
I think there's people eagerly awaiting speaking.
Are these people still awake out there? Okay. Okay. Here we go. Where are we? Okay. We'll open up to public testimony at this time. Anyone wish to speak on the issue? See, nobody wants to speak on the issue. You never trust me, Jeff. Okay. Close the public testimony commission discussion. Who'd like to start? Commissioner Blackburn.
I think that the 15 that we had before, and I'd had an opportunity to drive by a few of them, and they were a mess. There's junk, and just as Jeff said, I think a lot of people were getting into the containers, trying to get stuff out. I'm glad that we've got rid of them. Some of the things that we have going now, I would think that if it was economical for the person who's running this, is this a nonprofit or is it for-profit? It doesn't matter.
I believe most of the testimony last time was that this is a nonprofit, but
If they're making money, they may even put 2 or 3 of them in the area, and as long as they're manned, like we discussed, I think it would be a good idea. But I'm all for it, even though we do have goodwill, we do have churches and so forth. Like Chairman Holtz said, I'm for it. I think the new revision that has been made by the planning department is good. I'd support it.
I'm not sure what you're saying. Are you supporting the way it's written right now?
I'm supporting the way it's written. The comment I was making is if indeed if they're making money, they may find that they want to open a couple of them, and if, again, the weekend, if they are making money, it would be economically feasible for them to have a attendant there over the weekend. But I like your idea as far as the weekend.
Okay. And my understanding is if they do want to open other ones, they've got to come through and get the permit to do it, right?
even the one that we're talking about here
Right.
will need an administrative use permit if
Right.
the code is passed.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Castellanos?
I agree with everything that's been said, including what you said about half day, potentially Sunday, although I'm on the fence a little bit about that. Like Commissioner Blackburn said, if they're making money, it makes sense for somebody to be there. Why wouldn't they? That's more potential revenues. The only consideration I can think of is, for religious reasons, the owners can't be there Sundays. Well, there's a workaround to that. They could have employees who Sundays, maybe they don't observe that, or they observe a different day of the Sabbath. Anyway, that aspect is a little tough, but I do agree that if we don't have somebody there daily, we run the risk of Sundays being a mess, or whenever it's not manned, having a mess. So it might be something to look at, just what how it all works out. If we keep everything as it's proposed, a code amendment. I think it'd be a good thing to see how it goes and then kind of go from there.
Commissioner Valley?
If that's the drop box that you have, that one, if that's the one that's right on the parking area where across from Macy's, well, every time I go through there, it's very clean and very well mended. So with that one, I don't see any problem with it. And also, too, I wanted to ask, weren't we supposed to, or the city was supposed to also have a fee, charge a fee for getting the permit to have a drop box?
Well, there is a fee for the administrative use permit. Is it 1,000? I think it's $1,000 now, so it's not.
Is that per year?
No, that's a one-time fee.
That's just one time deal.
And I would say we did have some discussions about that, although when we came back in November, that was not the direction that was given. And part of our discussions, when we at least at staff level, I don't recall what we discussed here, but I think the thought was that was when we were going to have unattended ones, when we thought we might allow unattended ones, then we really thought we needed a yearly.
Okay.
And staff is open. If that's what the Planning Commission has a consensus, is the Planning Commission wants to suggest that. The Planning Commission cannot establish a fee, but the City Council certainly can. And the Planning Commission could recommend that a fee be established, an annual fee, and that could be done. We could do that.
Commissioner Menifee?
I want to thank Jeff and the staff for taking a lot of material that we've looked at over the last 6 months and putting this together. I think it's beautifully done. I would ask you how we could change that 10 a.m. to 8 a.m. just to preclude a problem that someone might otherwise have. I'm not sure how we make that amendment, but it's one I would consider.
Well, I think from what I'm hearing you say, Commissioner Menifee, that the best way to handle that would be just to change the number from 10 to 8. Unless the commissioners have an issue and think that could cause some problems for businesses, but in my mind, I think 8 works. 8 a.m. works. During the weekdays and even in the weekends, you're going to have people there who are part of the mall traffic, and mall employees are going to be there. So that makes sense to me.
But I think I'm asking a technical question that will apply here, but may apply other places. When we're presented something and we discuss it and we decide that we personally would be in favor if there was a change, how do we introduce revisions, or I can't think of the word.
Amendments?
Amendments
Yeah. So you're saying if this gets adopted, just for sake of discussion,
right,
we adopted it at 10 a.m. Right. And the commission over the next 2 years watches and thinks it shouldn't be that late. We should allow it 8. Well, we'd have to go through a code amendment process, just like we're doing here, to change that number from 10 to 8.
Okay. That's thank you. I appreciate it. No, I'm saying this is before us, and we may get a motion to approve that. How do we get a motion to approve that with the changed time?
That's very simple. The maker of the motion can say, I move approval with the one amendment that this is changed to item number 10 is changed from 10 a.m. to 8 a.m.
I see. Okay.
We can do that. That's what you're here to do, to review. You can make whatever changes you think are necessary now. Once you approve it, it becomes harder, like we just talked about. But now everything's open to you. You have the right to say, you know what, Jeff, this is a bunch of muck. Go back and try again and bring this back, as soon as you can. Okay. You have that right and anything in between.
Okay.
We wouldn't do that to you.
You have the right to.
We might do it to Amy, but we wouldn't. Are you done? Okay. I agree with Commissioner Menifee about 8 a.m., but I don't see why they have to be open until 9 p.m. at night. I mean, that's awful late. I mean, thinking the same way 8 a.m., I can't see anybody going over at 9 o'clock at night or 8:30 at night. I would reduce 8 a.m. to maybe 6 or 7, but not 9 p.m. I mean, it's dark out and
I follow you there.
And the other thing on item 10, it's still, and I'm having a problem with it, doesn't say what days of the week. It doesn't say Monday through Friday. It just says we'll operate during these hours. But what days of the week does it say? I mean, they could do 2 days a week according to this.
The administrative use permit would be what this would set parameters, and then when they submit the administrative use permit, they'd say we want to be open from 10 to 7. And if they said 10 to 10, we'd say you can't do 10 to 10 because the code says this. But the conditional use permit would be what sets the hours that are approved for that particular
Well,
business.
don't they do the same thing with days of the week?
Yes, the same thing would be done with days of the week.
Because I don't see days of the week in here anyway.
No, the days of the week are open. So they can be, the way this is written, they could be open any day of the week from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay.
And so
I
in the
understand
administrative
that, but if we just leave it open, they could be open 1 day a week.
That's correct.
We don't want that.
Technically, I don't know if anybody would do that, but technically they could. Technically, we wouldn't have to approve it either. We might send it to forward it to you. We might deny it and let them appeal it if they wanted to. So I understand what you're saying. And from my standpoint, that's how we usually write codes. We allow things, and then we review them and determine what the restrictions should be. So we can do it in another logic, with a different logic, which is kind of what you're saying, is require them to be open 7 days a week or 6 days a week or some number of days a week, and make more restrictive hours.
Well, if we don't do that, and let's say they only decide to be there 2 days a week, that stuff's going to be piling up there the other 5 days of the week. Right back where we started from, and they went from 14 to 1, so there'd be more stuff coming in there.
If we believe our staff would approve 1 day a week, but I think what I'm hearing, and the staff understands and knows us well, that we wouldn't like that, so the staff's not apt to approve that.
That's correct. The other thing that you could do, if you had a concern and wanted more control over it, is say, you know what, we thought about it, we don't think administrative use permit is appropriate, we think it should be a conditional use permit. That way it comes before us, you, the Planning Commission, and you get the right to make the decisions on the parameters for each individual one, because you're concerned that you don't want a business going in that's going to be open 5 days a week or less. But that's another option that's available to you.
Yeah, I just have problems without having it in black and white how many days a week they need to be open. That's me. I don't know about how the rest of you feel. I mean, we're just leaving it up, well, we're leaving it up to you, and we're leaving it up to them. They say, I'll only be there 3 days a week.
And my suggestion there would be if you want to do that, say a minimum of 5 days a week. You must be open a minimum of 5 days a week.
Okay, but that way we give you direction as to what we want.
That is correct. And then I can pin that in here, and it'll go to council with what you're directing me to do.
And then again, how do we do, weekends? Are we back to,
Well, that 5 days a week could be any 5 days in the week. It wouldn't have to be work days.
Yeah.
So would we be able to, with a motion, in addition to changing it from 10 to 8, say also require 7 days?
Yes,
That's
could do that.
or conditional use permit. We could go either way.
Yeah, either one of those things, or both.
Okay. I guess where I'm coming from, if we go 8 to, let's say, 6 or 7 days a week, but on Saturdays and Sundays, maybe only 8 to noon or something like that. I don't want to make it so restrictive, but I just want to make sure that they're cleaning the place up and not letting it sit there for 2, 3, 4 days outside that facility.
And what I might suggest there is, instead of giving them a time, having them open a certain amount of time. At least
so many hours?
At least 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday, something like that.
Yeah. I'm more concerned that they come by and check on it on Saturdays and Sunday and clean up what's there. Okay, Saturdays I think they should be open. Sundays I could see, maybe at least we make it that somebody comes by midday or something to make sure there's nothing laying outside. I don't know how the rest of you feel. So we make a motion?
Yeah, now, there's no impetus here to get this done tonight either. I mean, I think everybody's interested in seeing this move forward and get done, but you could also continue this. I can see a benefit to that. Give me direction on rewrites, and then I can also request, I didn't request that those individuals that were here last time come, but it seems like it might behoove them to be here to be helpful in providing information so that we write something that is similar, that their use would make sense abiding by, if that makes any sense. But I can do it either way. I'm just putting out.
We could make an amendment right tonight with that in there if everybody agrees.
You can do that, yeah, and then forward it to the city council.
What do you think?
Sure. Comfortable with that?
Save you from going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to worry about saving me.
So let's see how we can do this.
What I would suggest you do, if you're comfortable with that, make a motion, have it seconded, and then sort of talk through the items you want changed.
Okay. So we'll make a motion to amend item number 10.
Second.
Let me give you a, no, actually that's not what I'm suggesting, but close. I'm suggesting, let me read the resolution number, make the motion to approve the resolution with the following amendments, get a second, and then let's go through the amendments.
Okay.
So the resolution number is 14-5551.
Okay. I have a motion to approve Resolution 14-5551 with
Amendments.
amendment.
And then have a motion to second.
So we have motion,
So,
second.
Well, we should talk about what?
Before the second.
Before the second.
Yes, that's probably.
So
that's
Before
right.
the second.
Before the second. So I think what
Okay.
the main consensus, and you all could correct me if I've missed something, 8 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. and a minimum of 4 hours on weekends, which gives them the flexibility to choose which 4 hours those are, and if they choose to be open more than 4 hours for their convenience.
Well, I was thinking 4 hours on Saturday, and they have to swing by on Sunday just to clean it up. Is that, unless you
Okay.
want to do 4 hours Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, I think, would be a busy day. I think that
Right.
should be a regular day.
I think it probably is.
It probably
But
is.
Sunday, I would say, doesn't have to be a full day.
Okay, so you're saying, let me try to word, you're saying be open at least 6 days a week,
Right.
with the exception that Sundays at least have someone go by and monitor, maintain the site.
That's what I was saying. I don't know what the rest of you are saying.
And
Okay.
Gerald is the maker of the motion, so, yeah, okay.
Do we have a second?
So how many hours a day, did you say?
Give me 1 second to jot this down
Okay.
so I don't, I say the same thing every time. Okay, so let's, so the 8 a.m. instead of 10, so it's going to be 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
No, I don't think it ought to be 9 p.m. I'm sorry. That's too late.
Okay, maker of the motion.
But the stores around it may be open.
Yeah, but I don't see people dropping things off at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I don't. I think they'd be doing it during the daylight hours more than at night. That's my feeling.
But they would have the flexibility to decide as well. We're just giving them parameters. They don't have to be open till 9.
But we're going to tell them how many minimum hours they're going to be open. Right?
During the week as well?
Yeah.
So,
When the applicant applies for the conditional use permit, these are parameters. If they want to open at 8 and stay open to 9, at least that is the flexibility that the
Yes,
planning department will allow. What we want to do, excuse me if I'm hearing my fellow commissioners, want to have a minimum of 4 or 6 hours a day, in which, dealing with the planning department at that time, they can say, hey, we would like to be open from 8 to 10 or 12, maybe a couple of hours in the afternoon. I don't think we need to decide that and tell them, you have to be here between this hour, this hour, this hour, and you can't be here past this hour. I think that when the applicant applies, I think the discussion with the planning department at that time, they would decide what works better, not only for them, but works better for the city.
Okay, so if we say 8 to 9, let's say, I'm giving it just an example, 8 to 9, but they only have to be there 6 hours, it could be any 6 hours within the 8 to 9.
It just gives the applicant the
Because
flexibility.
The other thing I was thinking about, and I'm sorry to do this, but nowadays for tax purposes, you need to get a receipt for everything if you're going to claim it. And a lot of people claim this stuff for tax, so somebody's got to give you that ticket that says this is what it is. You can't put that down yourself anymore and say, oh, it's worth $40. Okay, so somebody's got to be there to do that if people are interested in getting that. So if we say you're open from 8 to 9, that's 13 hours a day, okay? But we're saying, okay, if you want to be open 8 to 9, but you got to be there at least 6 hours during that time period, or 4 hours, or whatever we say. Go ahead, Betty.
Isn't it going to be upon, like you discussed, the flexibility of the person to be there in between that? And usually there's also something in here where they have to put the hours
Be posted.
posted. So when they post those hours, they can stay there, whether they're going to be 8 to 12, and then they're going to be closed, return back on such and such an hour till such and such an hour.
What you're saying, if the hours are 8 to 9, they got to post when they're going to be there.
Yes.
Within that time.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very convoluted.
Well, that's what they do when they, for the recycles.
Yes, it's very similar to what we...
Yeah, they...
And I see the, I mean, you got a kind of a push-pull here thing. I think in generally, we kind of patterned it after the recycle, but one of the issues that I think the chairman is bringing up is that we're trying to not allow unattended. So how do we make sure it's not unattended? So I do see that part, which we didn't really focus on very much the first time. And again, I want to emphasize that if there's a grave concern about that, the best approach might be just to say CUP. That way allows it all to be a public discussion, hearing, and everybody reviews it. Without, if we're going to, and so I think I see where we're talking about, and I'm jotting down notes, so, and I don't think the Planning Commission has come to a consensus yet on the hour, the latest hour they'd be comfortable with, but 8 a.m. in the morning till either 7 or 9 at night, and then open at least 6 days a week, and then somebody needs to go by and maintain it on Sunday. Open at least 6 hours a day, weekdays, and at least 4 hours a day, minimum of 4 hours a day on Saturday. They can go over that if they want, but they have to be open at least that. That way they're attended and not unattended. So that, I think, is what I've heard so far.
Yeah. Well, the key to it is, if we go back, is we want it not to be dumped there.
Yes.
We want it cleaned up. And if they're there, as you stated, it'll be cleaned up every day. I think that's our main focus, not to have stuff stored there for 2-3 days and piled up.
Yes.
So I think that would accommodate it, what you said. I don't want to repeat it.
So I think, I'm not sure if we've got a consensus there. I wasn't really watching to see if nodded heads, but the one issue I think that I still not sure I heard resolved was whether 9 o'clock at night is appropriate, or you want to make it 7 o'clock. And you could just do a straw poll, kind of raise your hand.
Well, 8 to 9 is 13 hours. It's a long time.
Yeah, but I doubt anybody's going to be open that whole time. It just gives them the flexibility to decide what in that time period they want to be open.
I don't. What do you think? 9 o'clock's okay? I'll go with 9.
I think so.
9's okay. 9's okay.
Okay. All right. Got the motion. So it's going to be 8 a.m. rather than 10 p.m. At least 6 days a week.
9 p.m.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. And then keep the hour, and at least 6 days a week, and somebody go by and maintain on Sunday, and then 6 hours a day, weekdays, at least minimum 4 hours a day on Saturday.
Okay.
So if that's the amendment to the changes, and then we need a second and a vote.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Yeah,
Well
that
done.
was difficult. What? I'll teach you to bring these things up again, Jeff. Okay. Where are we at here? Okay, non-hearing items, study session, subcommittee for design review of policy. Staff?
All right, so the purpose of this study session is to allow the Planning Commission to consider a policy allowing for staff level review of certain items that would normally go to the subcommittee. The subcommittee is there to ensure the quality development, promote orderly development, and conserve property values and preserve architectural character. And as I think most of you are aware, right now it's Commissioner Menifee and Commissioner Blackburn who are serving as the subcommittee members. Subcommittee, I think, began in like 2003, 2004, so it's been in place for some time. Over the years, the subcommittee has formulated certain guidelines or rules of thumb, and there are two sets of guidelines that we have right now. We have design guidelines for one-story houses, and we have design guidelines for two-story houses. Those are attachments 1 and 2 in your staff report. These are handouts meant to convey to homeowners, architects, and contractors the subcommittee rules of thumb in order to allow them to consider those and make those, put those improvements on the plan before they come to the subcommittee, making it our job easier, the applicant's job easier, and the subcommittee's job easier. On November 26th, the subcommittee discussed the concept of establishing a new policy that would allow for the review and approval by staff for certain categories of improvements that would normally go to the subcommittee. And that would only occur if staff determined that the improvements were consistent with the guidelines. So staff went back and kind of reviewed some of the issues that we find are very routine in nature, and those are the things we put on here. And it may be from time to time we increase this list as we go through and we discuss things with the subcommittee and think maybe these things don't need to come to us if they meet the guidelines. I'm going to cover a couple things, and I'm going to try to explain. Let me grab my pointer. I'm going to try to explain what a couple of them mean, because some of them are confusing and may not. Hopefully the subcommittee members will recognize what I'm talking about, but some of the others may not because they don't deal with these issues. The first one would be exterior siding replacement. Somebody's taking a wood house and they're replacing the siding of the wood with either a hardy board, fake wood. It looks like wood, or they're putting in some kind of rock or brick or some other kind of alternative material. It meets the guidelines, but it's a fairly straightforward change. Second, front porches. We get a lot of people putting in front porches for weather protection, and most of the time these days they're right on and meeting the guidelines. Thirdly, additions to the side of an existing single-family residence that are visible from the front yard or the street side yard, and that's what this one is here to show. This is a corner house here. So sometimes what you have is you have someone doing an addition here, and it may be behind a block wall, and it's kind of the way that the code is written. It says anything can be seen by the street, so technically that would require review, but most of the time they're just kind of following the same design that's on the house, and there's really not much for the subcommittee to review.
Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This issue we had tonight about the people being upset, is the reason the subcommittee didn't review that and all that is because it couldn't be readily visible from the public right away?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's in the rear yard. It's one story.
Okay.
Almost every one-story structure in the rear yard does not require subcommittee review. It was set up to review things that happen to the front of the house, and then later added second story because they have view impacts.
Thank you.
Fifth one is conversion of garages into living space, and I didn't get an example of that, but in West Covina, many places we have these things that are called rear entry garages, where you go around to the back and then you come in, and when they convert those to living space and add a garage in the back, the garage is not visible, so they don't usually require that review, and then there's not really a change to the front elevation because a lot of times it's just interior changes. And then lastly, the most confusing one, additions to, oh, come on. Oh, I don't have this on, that's why. I'm mad at my computer tonight. Lastly, additions to the rear or side of an existing single-family residence that are visible from the public right-of-way but behind the front portion of the house where the addition projects less than 10 feet to the existing wall. That's a mouthful. So what happens is, in a house like this one as example, you have a garage. A lot of times there are these turning garages, but other times there are garages that go straight in. And you can see that there's a notch here when the house was built. So what happens a lot of times is people will come in, and this will be a 15-foot side yard or something, and they'll build a house that goes like this. So you can see this little return portion from the street. And so the code would say if it's on the front of the house and you can see it from the street, it needs to go to subcommittee. But most of these are very minor little things, and we'd like to have that also be allowed for staff level review. What that would do, well, let me go through the process. These types of projects will continue to require the submittal of a subcommittee review, so they'd still have to submit the application. Upon submittal, staff would review the proposal and inspect the site. If staff determined that the proposed improvement was consistent with the guidelines, staff would approve the application. If we determined it wasn't consistent with the guidelines, we would schedule it for the next available subcommittee. So that's our suggestion. Attachment 3 is the actual policy that we're talking about adopting, and I'll conclude there. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions of staff?
No. I have probably more of a comment. I appreciate this. Commissioner Blackburn and I have spent many times with Amy doing 2- and 3-minute meetings because the nature of the things were so clearly investigated by the staff, and were so very minor, like a whole bunch of them we got, at least on one occasion, that wanted to change the siding on their house. And I thought, why are we doing this? Why are we holding somebody up when the staff could have approved it until they can get it to us for review? And so I asked that the staff bring this to us tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Nope.
I thank you, too.
There's no resolution, but I would appreciate a motion and a second and a vote.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Nice work. More work for you. Nice work. That takes us. Continuation of oral communications. Anybody out there want to still talk? You still awake, Dave? You want to say anything? Huh? Nothing? Boy. Okay. Commission reports, comments, and miscellaneous items. This is a time when a member of the commission may bring a matter to the attention of the full commission that is within the scope of duties assigned to the commission. Any item that was considered during the agenda is not appropriate for discussion in this section of the agenda. No commission discussion or action can be considered at this time. If the commission desires to discuss an issue raised by a speaker or take an action, the commission may vote to agendize the matter for future meeting. Planning director's report?
Well,
You do have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Regarding what the speakers talked about at the beginning, Jeff, when you said that that's by right, and I know we talked about this on the phone, is that by city ordinance or state or federal or all three, two of the three?
That is, guest houses are by city ordinance.
Okay. And is there state law that
There's
that
not
regulates
state law
that?
for
None?
guest houses.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll bring something, I'll probably bring a modified resolution to you next time to change the code amendment on second units. And it gets very confusing because sometimes we talk about second units in guest houses and it seems like they're the same thing, but they're not. There are standards for second units. Second units are required to allow a kitchen. They're required there's state law on that, not federal, but state law.
Okay.
Guest houses, however, are basically a detached room. And I don't want to go into too much detail because it's not on the agenda,
Right.
and it's really appropriate to talk about as part of the code amendment, but it's basically a detached room. How it's used is going to differ over time. So we can't approve something because somebody needs it to be used a certain way or thinks it's going to be used a certain way because we have no control over how it's used, right? It's a room. It's going to be used however the residents feel it should be used. So that's the issue with that.
Okay. Thank you.
But they're still not allowed, like, in this guest house to be cooking and all that stuff.
They are not allowed to have kitchen facilities, and I think that was part of their concern.
But she said something about electrical. Well, they can have electrical, and they can live in the dark.
They can have electrical, they can have heating and cooling, yes.
What about bathrooms?
Yeah, the guest house standards allow for restrooms.
Okay, bathroom, okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? No? Okay. Planning director's report?
We have the subcommittee minutes for the last two meetings, one in December,
I'm
one in
sorry,
January.
Jeff. Did you want to say something, Betty?
I had a question. I don't know if it's proper to ask right now, but this is in regards to the sale of the plaza, Fashion Plaza. We voted on the art. Remember that park? There was a...
Yes.
What's going to happen now?
Well, we just recently met with the representatives of the new owner. Plain and simple, I don't know yet, but they are aware, they know they're required to do it. They are still taking stock of what exactly they want to do. So something will occur in that regard, but I don't know what the answer to that is right now, Commissioner Valles.
I also have another question. They're doing a lot of solar heating now. Now, before they install that on their homes, are they to have a permit from?
Yes. A permit is required to install solar on a roof, yes.
Jeff, doesn't the fire department also get involved with this?
Your mic's not on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The fire department also gets involved
Oh, yes.
whenever they have solar.
That's my understanding is that
Yep.
is the case.
Okay, just
Anyone else?
Subcommittee minutes, there's 2 sets. We did send you all some information on the upcoming Planning Commissioners Institute. We will agendize that for next meeting to allow for a little bit more discussion, but we'd be happy to entertain any questions. I know that there's several that have an interest.
Do you have a date for the next meeting?
We will have a meeting on the February 11th.
February 11th, okay. Is that it?
That's all I have.
City council action?
City Council action, nothing to report from City Council that at the last meeting that came through the Planning Commission, but one thing that I was a point of interest for the Planning Commission is the City Council, the last meeting, did discuss a general plan update and going forward with that, and gave staff direction on certain approaches to releasing the request for proposals. So that is a long process, generally takes a couple of years, and so we're going to be starting that. And it should be an exciting process, and it'll be Planning Commission will be an integral part of that discussion.
Question for you. There's been quite a few rumors going around that Target's moving out. I don't know if you know anything about that or if there's any validity to it. And the other item is that I was in Office Depot yesterday, and they're moving to a smaller location by Albertson, and the manager there said the reason they're doing that is Walmart wants to expand into their space, and I wonder if there's any credence to that.
I'm not aware of either one of the rumors or or the truth.
Right, okay, thank you.
That's all.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.